We imagine reality to be colourful because we know life is not black and white. Colour illuminates the path by providing a map of consciousness through energising us so we can experience the unseen world and embody all of who we are becoming.
Hi, I'm Kath.
And I'm Kate.
And we're the co-founders of a community interest company called Foundation of Colours. And that's a company dedicated to evolving consciousness through the use of colour.
And we are coming to you today with a very brand new podcast where we want to share how colour illuminates the path to consciousness and what that looks like. So we're going to start by interviewing Kath and getting her take on this. So Kath, do you want to give us a sense of how did you get into this work, really?
So first, let's start there. So I'm pretty conventional. I had a good education. I worked hard. I worked my way up through the corporate chain of command. And long story short, I got to a certain place where I felt that my ladder was pointed against the wrong wall. And I got stuck, basically. I realised that what I thought I'd yearned for all of those years was not really actually giving me the satisfaction in life that I wanted. So I set about leaving and setting up my own business. That was a long time ago. So you might say I woke up on a number of levels.
Fabulous. So you're in this new place. You didn't really know where you were going, but you knew that where you got to wasn't where you wanted to be. So it's sort of like taking a leap of faith, a bit like the fool in the tarot.
Going into the unknown, but having an understanding that there's got to be more to life. And I think that's a nice place to start with this whole concept of consciousness, because consciousness is a big subject, but really it's nothing more than how we perceive the world.
And I think what you're talking about there really, or inferring in what you're saying, is it's almost a process of unlearning. And that actually what we've come to realise as we've gone on this journey together is that it's really about deprogramming all of the rhubarb that we picked up and those formative years between 0 and 7. So that sort of takes me to the place of, you know, what is the software and the hardware? What do we mean about that? And how does that sort of link back to consciousness?
So if you think that how we perceive ourselves, we sense primarily our thoughts, our feelings, and through most people understand to be the 5 senses, what we can taste, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can feel, and what we can smell. And yet there's a level beyond that, which is the 6th sense. And yet most of us experience the 6th sense, but we just don't pay enough attention to it on a day-to-day basis. So if you imagine we get in our cars and we drive from A to B, we're probably in our minds and we're thinking about, you know, what we're going to have for dinner tonight, or how did that last conversation go, or a piece of work that we might be involved with. And we manage to get to where we're driving to on autopilot. So when we wake up to this level of reality, we start to see life in a more colourful way. We start to realise that actually we don't live in an objective world where everything is outside of us, but in fact we live in a subjective world and we're creating it all.
Perfect. So what we're talking about there partly is co-creation, and that thing that I think I like to think of it really that at the beginning we always think everything's happening to us, to me. Oh, you know, that person said that awful thing, or that's happened.
The victim consciousness.
Yeah, exactly that. And then the awake piece, we go to the place of it happens by me. I am co-creating this. I have the thought. Everything happens twice, the thought and then the response to the thought. So that's what we're talking about. So, and you're also talking about intuitive intelligence there. You know, the intuition is always there. And I think that's really what drew us both into colour, wasn't it? This idea that we can see more through colour. Helps us to see beyond the everyday.
Well, colour provides the map, doesn't it? It helps us to start to understand our deeper selves, because intuition by its very nature means to go inside. And for us to go inside, we have to start to unpick what is the mind and who is actually observing the reality. The person that's observing our thoughts and what we're feeling, and we've got to get those two aspects into alignment. So colour is a wonderful tool to help us to understand ourselves, to help us to evolve more consciously, and to live more in this place of joy. And I think, most people can relate to that, because when we wake up in the morning and we've got a beautiful blue sky and we can feel that sun on our back, we're going to feel entirely different, right?
Yeah.
To, the alternative, a grey day. So we know that colour is affecting us, don't we? Both physiologically, in so much as cool colours are calming us down and warm colours are heating up the body and they're getting us ready for action.
And it kind of goes beyond that, doesn't it? Because I think that people sometimes say, "Oh, right, so you're Colour Me Beautiful specialists, or you look at the colours we wear, or the colours of the room, or and of course all of those things play a part, because when we understand the psychology of colour, we can understand why somebody might be choosing to wear black, for example, or red, and so on. But it's much more than that. And I guess to help people, maybe a way of looking at that is just to take the three primary colours, which after all are the first three colours of our colour mirror system. Maybe do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So if we consider the three primary colours, they're essentially red, yellow and blue. Mm-hmm. And then all secondary colours are made up as are derived from any of those three primaries. And if we think about red, we associate red with the body. Mm. So we could also look at this in the sense of shapes. So the first shapes that ever existed, think of the square. So that is the association with red. It's our physicality. It's this vessel that we sit in. If we think about yellow, think of the shape of the pyramid, and that's pointing to this higher consciousness. It's pointing to inspiration. We're looking upwards. We're looking for our spirit. Mm-hmm. We know and got a sense that there's something more to this world, to this reality, than exists just primarily from what we can see and hear through the five senses and the physical world, the material world. And then the blue is the circle, and the blue is representing the spirit, and that is our eternal, immortal nature. And it's actually pointing us to understanding that actually there's a balance of giving and receiving. And that is essentially what we are working out in life, is it not? We're working out how to live more from the spirit in an embodied sense, because we've got to live in this world and we've got to have a lot of fun and a lot of joy.
Absolutely. So there is something there. I think when you were talking about the circle, it took me straight back to The Lion King, the circle of life, and that whole kind of, and I suppose that is the journey, is it's not a linear one, as we would, I suppose the conditioned self would have us believe, but it's more of a spiral, so things come back. So it's never too late, because there'll always be another opportunity to address a particular thing that's come up, or a point of learning, a trigger, and all of those things. And the other thing that comes to me as you're saying that is, what's really interesting is when we take the three primary colours, red, yellow and blue, we know that equal amounts of those colours create copper. And what's interesting is, just as yellow, blue and it's coral, which is a form of red, are the first three bottles of the colour mirror system, copper is the first colour in the higher frequency colours. So again, there's that sort of synergy there. Would you like to tell us a bit more about copper and what it means?
So copper, I would say, is, in a nutshell, practical wisdom, practical spiritual wisdom. It's about really looking at what's real in our lives and being prepared to do something about taking the action to change that. So I think once we wake up and realize that we have this spiritual energy and we harness this spiritual energy and we get inspired, then we can start to take action and move forward. So copper for me is coming all the way down to earth and bringing that part of ourselves and making it, shaping it, and getting out there, making it happen.
And when you say it like that, it sounds amazing. And yet the interesting fact is that lots of people who would consider themselves to be really spiritual really struggle with copper. Why do you think that is?
Well, most people don't want to go there because they'd rather live in these higher realms and where it's all love and light and fluffy, and unicorns and such like. But at the end of the day, we are here to experience life fully in a body. And that means that we have to look at how we're able to look after ourselves, to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to get out there in the world and to be a success. So that requires us to work with the material realm as much as with the spiritual realm. So we've got to embody some of those spiritual aspects in order to fully live a life of abundance here. And I think this is, I'm hinting at this idea that being here is not just about making money. It's about living in a state of abundance in everything.
So I suppose that's also coming back to when we were talking about it happens to me, it happens by me, it's getting to that place, it happens through me.
Correct.
Or as me.
Or as me, because it's starting to understand that actually you are the universe and the universe is operating through you.
That's it, yeah. Which, is quite a profound statement and quite a chewy one for people to get their heads around. I'm also aware, it would be interesting, I think, for people listening to hear more about, how your thoughts have developed recently, because obviously we had our original book that we wrote in 2015, Colourful Boardrooms, which we've just published the second edition of this year. And you're working yourself on a book, which you feel now in some ways should have come before our book, because it kind of...
Sure.
Do you want to say more about that, really?
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, the book is really concerned with this idea that we wake up to this other level of reality, and we have to understand ourselves as a sixth sensory being, if you like, and how we live from soul intelligence, and what shifts, what needs to shift in our life in order for us to move into a flow state. And so I sort of unpack that with regard to helping us understand the world of energy. Yeah. And actually that all energy is not the same. And I think most of us can experience or understand that when we start to think about what brings us joy, where we've had those peak moments in our life. The question is how we sustain them. And the question is how we then start to live in balance and harmony with everything in creation, and starting to recognize that we are not, in fact, separate beings on this planet, but everything is interdependent and interconnected. So the book is really about helping people understand those aspects of themselves and to understand how the mind truly works, and then how to get into a flow with life.
And I really love that, because it kind of follows neatly kind of where we're going to go in the next episode of this podcast, at looking at, if it's that easy, it's all about having joy. Why are people not loving life as much? And what blocks
what gets
people
in the way?
Yeah. And what, so I think that's a nice segue really to say, been fabulous, talking to you today, and really looking forward to connecting next time.
Magic happens in any given moment. All it takes is us to be aware and present and open to what wants to unfold. Our intention is always to enable you to see more, perceive more, and be more.